Welcome to episode 30 of the Thelma Tapes, the Living Memory Association podcast, which is a celebration of pets who are no longer with us. From the mists of time, we hear tales of much-loved cats and dogs, performing budgies, neglected fish, rabbits galore, and one boring tortoise. Back in time we go.
We've always been family animal people, so we've had cats, dogs, rabbits, goldfish, goats, because I lived in a small holding. But I suppose the dog that I remember the most was Ben, who was a rescue dog, and he was a cross between a setter and a retriever, and he was massive. He weighed 6 stone, which probably when we got him was more than I weighed. And he was a very affable dog. It was a huge head, big mouth, very, very easy going. And we lived on a small holding at the time, and at the back was a farm. And quite often this Jack Russell used to come into our yard, and it would nip away at Ben the whole time, and it would snarl at him, and this went on for months probably, and he never reacted to it at all. He'd sort of walk off until the day that obviously he'd snapped, because I looked out the window and he was walking across the yard with the Jack Russell in his mouth. I mean, literally just picked the whole thing up, and it never happened again, strangely enough. So it was that kind of...
And so was this to place this in a time context? Was Ben's time the 60s? Was he a 60s?
70s. He was a 70s dog, so that was in Wales.
We had 2 budgies, and if my brother or I were playing with our train set on the orange floor, the budgie would come and sit on the train and go round and round and round, and we thoroughly enjoyed it.
So obviously they were okay coming out the cage?
Yeah, the only thing about that was when we got the first budgie was that Dad took us down to this budgie breeding place, and there was all these budgies and all these things, and I saw this one I liked, and I went and I pulled this lever, and it opened all the doors, and all the budgies are flying around it.
When I was younger, maybe 3-4 year old, don't know if it was my pet or not, but my uncles, believe it or not, bought a horse, and they kept it in the back green at the back of the house. I think because I was the first sort of grandchild, they bought this horse and taught me to ride it at 3 and stuff like that. But then that sort of, somebody found out about it being kept in the back green and it had to go, so it went.
I had a dog called Ben, and that was during the 1990s, and he was a cross collie, and he used to love to go and escape. He used to go away, he used to get out, he used to go way up the hill and all over. And one day he got out and he never came back. It was winter time, we didn't know where he was, and we were very, very, very worried. And I think he was away all night until there was morning time, and there was an announcement on Radio 4 about a lost pet. And it was, I don't know which, it was a bank in George Street. Anyway, one of the workers on their way into work in the morning had seen this dog just lying on the pavement in Charlotte Square. Oh no. Finished, done for, hardly knowing what to do, exhausted. And they'd taken the dog in, and they must have phoned Radio 4, the pet line. The announcement went out, my mother heard it, went down to George Street, and there was the dog lying in the middle of the bank. We watched after when we got him back.
We had cats in our family. We loved them, mind you, but they were working cats because they were to take the mice away in the flat. My cat wasn't very good hunting the mice. He would run away with my mother when the mice came,
Was fear of the mice, was it?
Aye.
But did you have a name for the cat?
Lucy.
Oh, Lucy? Yeah.
We had it for years.
Yeah.
We even moved down to Barney Street, and we took the cat with us.
Uh-huh.
And when we took the cat, we took it the day before because we were doing it in secret. A secret flitting it was.
Oh, right.
And we took it down before, and then the next day we went, and our cat wasn't there. We couldn't find it anywhere. We looked for it, and we had to put it in the flat.
And it had run away?
Well, we just didn't know where it was. So we just started unpacking the stuff,
Uh-huh.
And here we heard a noise at the chimney. The cat had gone up the chimney.
And did you get it back down?
She came down.
Lucy? This is Lucy?
Lucy came down. She came down. She slept with us and did everything with us.
And had it been a black cat before it went up?
No, it was a tiger.
So it was a black one when it came out?
We're glad to see her, because we loved her,
Oh, right, yeah.
My mother wanted dogs, but my dad didn't. We lived in the prefabs in Northfield, so we never had a dog or a cat. But my mother always had one that used to come to our house. Every day he used to come to our house. He's along the road for years, And it used to come in and she used to feed it, give it drinky water, and let it go home.
Later on in life at school, we did a project looking after rabbits, and then I was at secondary school then, and I decided that I would breed some myself and sell them. So we used to breed them with a friend of mine, and we sold them to a pet shop. I can't remember the name of the pet shop, but it was down the stairs at Victoria Street, and it was two brothers that had it. I think we got about 2 shillings for each rabbit.
Did you keep any yourself?
Yeah, I kept them myself for a wee while.
When our next door neighbours moved out, by that time the properties were due to get pulled down, so the landlord didn't bother locking up their room and kitchen, so to speak. So we kind of just, as they would say, commandeered the space. And my uncle used to breed budgies, and he had canaries as well, but primarily budgies. So he kind of took over their kitchen with all these bird cages. And the room was used for, my granny used to keep her go-car for the wash house in there. And my chum and I, we used to play like we were doing a variety act. And we would get all the budgies out the cage, and we would put the music on, and we would line all the budgies along the spars in the go-kart. And we used to prance up and down, where we frou-frou skirts on, pretending that we were one of these variety acts. And then we would line them up on the sideboard, and we would shout and try and get them to come to our finger. Yeah. But of course, as soon as it was tea time, Ray used to shoot off because her mum was expecting her to be in, and I'd be left to put all these budgies back in the cages. But if we had a couple in our kitchen, they were getting out for a fly around, my granny used to lift up the newspaper and sit with it across her head, because if the budgies landed on her head, she used to wear a hairnet and it would all get caught. So she used to sit with this newspaper hat on. And they used to all sit along, and my uncle was quite happy with that. He wouldn't have put them in their cages, if it wasn't for that. Yeah. But that was us. We used to play with the budgies. They were like our wee dolls.
Did you give them names?
No, I think everyone was Joy, or we used to get the wee eggs, because some of them used to be egg bound. Right. And sometimes you get the egg that hadn't been fertilised, and we used to collect them on wee matchboxes.
Oh, goats. We had goats for many years. We had this small holding. So now what were they called? Snowdrop and Emma.
Who was naming these pets?
I think it was. Sometimes it was me.
When I was a boy, I lived in Malaya with my dad's last year and a half in the army, and we got a stray dog called Lassie, black and white mongrel. A great wee dog. He used to play with us. Snatty just used to come out, and everywhere we went, the dog was beside you. When we came home, we had to leave it, and we were all crying. Yeah. We wanted to take the dog with us, but it was a no-no. This was a place called Johor Bahru. Johor's a city about 60 miles from Singapore.
I had a tortoise. That was my only pet. My mum, there wasn't any room for pets in her house.
No much variety act you can do with a tortoise, is there really?
No, it was a bit boring. Yeah. I put its name on its shell.
What was it called?
Tortoise. Well, I put a big T on its shell, and it was years later we found out it can actually poison it. The paint, I suppose the paint was lead based then.
We had a Jack Russell, I remember when I was very young, and it was so nippy. It's all there, isn't it, Jack Russell? That in fact we gave that away because it bit the postman in a kind of traditional dog type way. We had 2 cats, Sam and Sue, who lived till they were 17 or 18, and one was black and white, the other one was a tortoiseshell. And Sue, what a strange name, Sam and Sue. Sue actually warned us that the house was burning down because she was shut in the kitchen with the coal boiler, which had set light to the chimney and filled the room with smoke. And she was at the door yowling and scratching to get out, obviously, which woke up my parents, who then went in there and saw all this smoke and flames and stuff. So the fire brigade came out. So that was rescued us, Sue. God rest her.
A long time without pets, and then we got married, and my wife came home one day with a wee box, and I says, "What's in the box?" She said, "It's a cat, a kitten." And I says, "Why have you brought a cat?" She says, "Well, it was either keep it or it was getting put down." So we had that cat for 14, nearly 15 years, and it died. And then Lulu, it was a male, but we called it Lulu because when it was a kitten, somebody said it was a male, but it turned out to be a female.
But I mean, the other funny story, as far as I was concerned, was when I was married, because my ex loved cats, and she decided she wanted to have a cat. So we got a cat, and then she wanted it to have its first batch of kittens, and then she would, at 5 in the morning, this cat went into labour, and it was yupping, and it had 7 altogether, I think it was, and it eventually stopped, and I thought, great, I can go back to bed. And then take her down the vet, she said, so I went down there, and I'm in the waiting room with this cat yupping and pulling away, and then when they shouted me to go into the surgery and pick up the basket and get to the surgery door, and this cat lets out the loudest fart I'd ever heard. And everyone's looking at me, and I'm going, it's a cat. So we decided to keep that cat, and her and I became quite friends. I was the only one that she would handle and pick her up and things like that for some reason. I don't know. It's just one of those weird connections. But everyone in the surgery is looking at me going,
it wasn't me. It wasn't me. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Our grandson, when he was small, always wanted a dog. And of course his mum and dad worked, so it just wasn't practical. So you kind of persuade him to think what kind of pet he could have. So he decided he wanted one of these, is a bearded dragon, these creepy crawlies things. And I says, "Oh, darling, you're not wanting that." So he settled on fish. So his papa and I goes out and we buys him the nice modern fish tank and all these, whatever it is you need. And we stocked it up with fish. So one day I'm down, I used to collect them from nursery and then it was on to primary. And he's showing me the fish. They were in his bedroom and I says, "Where at?" "I've lost one." I says, "You've lost one?" "Uh-huh." I says, "How can you lose a fish?" I don't know, I've lost one." I went, "Right, okay." So about 3 fishes later, when there was like 2 left, I says, "How you lost another one?" He says, "I know what it is, Grandma, they get sucked up that tube." So I think this was the filter thing that used to sit at the side. They get sucked up that tube. So once the other 2 have been sucked up, I'm not wanting any more. I'll get a dog. I says, "But you'll not get a dog, darling." But he persevered and then he eventually lost the other 2 up this tube. So that was the whole lot redundant. He didn't want more fish. "I'll have a dog." No, same scenario. Can I have a dog? What can I have next? So it was a hamster. So he goes out and buys him the cage and the wheel and he gets his hamster. "How are you liking that?" "It's boring. It only moves, it only walks at night time. I hear it going round its wheel at night." And his older sister used to take it out and play with it and he'd go, "Oh, that's a waste of time. I don't like playing with it. It doesn't do anything." I says, "All right, okay. At least it's there and, you've got a pet. You can take it to show and tell and all this carry on. Far rather have a dog." So here one time, the hamster went missing and they were still in Musselburgh at this time. They stayed in Musselburgh. And I said, "Where could it? I don't know. But I'm not fussy because now I'll get a dog." Okay, so they were due to move house. Their house was getting built. And when it came time for them to pack up, I says to him, it was a few months later, and I says to him, "You never know, darling, maybe the hamster's been hibernating and you'll find it when you come to move." And he kind of looked at me the one way and I says, "What is it?" He says, "I think if we find it, Grandma, we'll just kill it. And then I can get a dog." I went, "You can't kill it." He says, "Well, it's been missing all this time, so I won't miss it." So that was him. We didn't find it. thankfully.
No, yeah.
Either it's corpse or whatever. And they moved house. Back on again, the subject to a dog. So we appeased him with rabbits. He got a black one, Madeline got a white one, and Darren built this great big fancy hutch thing out in the garden for them. And that was okay for a wee while. He quite liked this. But Madeline's one kept escaping. And Darren, for the life of him, couldn't find out where it was escaping to. And of course, Saul again, I wish my one would escape. Then I'd get a dog. But Madeline's one kept coming back. And we thought, oh, that's strange. Why does it come back? Oh, well, I wouldn't want mine to come back. Why does mine not go? So the only wee bit of excitement about the rabbits was one morning before school, Madeline had went out to feed the rabbits and started yelling because there was mice in the hutch. Of course, when he goes out, it wasn't mice, it was baby rabbits. And they were all like the grey wild rabbits. So she'd obviously been out dallying somewhere else.
Say, what a madam.
So they had to get rid of these rabbits. And I didn't even ask Darren what he'd done with them. But Saul was convinced that whatever he'd done with them, he should have just taken his rabbit as well. Because then he would have got a dog.
I can see the theme coming out here.
Oh,
so it was relentless.
Oh, relentless. And this was year on year.
I've had quite a few goldfish. I had a goldfish classically called Jaws. I also had a goldfish called Suggs, who was given away as a gift in the end. But the main pet of my childhood was a West Highland terrier called Toby. So I had a wee Westie, and unfortunately I didn't take him for enough walks. When my dad used to come and visit, he would go wild, bark the house down, because my dad would take him for long walks, but I was pretty rubbish, to the point where we just opened the front door and Toby would go up to the park at the end of the street on his own and run about the park, and then sometimes he would come back on his own, and other times you'd have to shout at him, and we'd walk to the park and shout, "Toby!" And if he was ready to come, then he would run straight away, and if he wasn't ready to come, he would just pretend that he hadn't heard you shouting. And unfortunately, and perhaps inevitably, Toby was run over. Well, Toby was run over 3 times. Once when he was out with my dad, he was run over by a motorbike and survived. The second time, we found him covered in oil. He'd gone under, car mustn't have been going very fast, but he'd gone under a car, under the front and then out the back and survived. But unfortunately for my beloved wee dog, it was third time unlucky. He was hit by a car and yeah, he wasn't killed straight away, but we had to get him put down on Christmas Eve. And as you say, heartbreaking. And I obviously cried when I was a kid, but this is when I was 16, and I don't think I'd cried for 8 or 9 years. And I remember after Toby's death looking at myself crying in the mirror to see what I looked like.
That's a very teenage thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah. I just looked kind of screwed up. But yeah, it was very sad. It was the first time and probably the last time that I remember crying before I got old and emotional and started crying at films.
Well, now you can't stop.
Yeah, crying all the time these days. Well, that was Toby.
So his next phase was he wanted chickens. So a friend of ours had a wee bit of a small holding, so we'd taken them out. And he chose, Madeline was getting a bit older by this time, he chose 2 chickens and was fair away with them, and we used to, pet them and what have you. Then he made up a nice flyer that he went round all the neighbours, offering to sell them 6 eggs every Saturday. And he got a lot of orders. He just didn't realise that he couldn't ask for the eggs to be dropped at will, So he was saying to all the neighbours, "Your turn's next. Okay. You can't, and I can only give you 2," and all this carry on. So that stopped. The only excitement he had out of the chickens was they started getting a bit vermin. Darren had one of these metal cases outside that they would keep the food in. And of course he worked away from home, so it was usually Julie that fed them. But there were next to a farm, they started getting rats in at the feed. Whereas Saul thought this was quite good because they used to run around the old boundary wall. So he was quite taken with that. But again, that novelty wore off. His excuse this time was he was older and he could look after the dog. But no, he wasn't getting a dog. So the chickens went because of the vermin, and it was all dismantled, and it was laid down that he wasn't getting any other pets and he wasn't getting a dog. But there was actually an incident with the rabbits that he thought was fantastic, because the rabbits used to get in. Darren, they've got a huge big back garden, and the rabbits used to get out, and Darren quite liked these rabbits bobbing along and sitting at the patio doors and what have you. And it was Christmas time, and the long table was set up in front of the patio doors, and all the family were there. And Sonia our daughter was up, who had Frankie, the Springer Spaniel. And she'd says to Darren, should you maybe not put the rabbits away, Darren? And Darren said, no, the rabbits are no bother at all. You know, he had a big area decking up the back of the garden, on raised levels. He says the rabbits go up and they go underneath there. So the Christmas dinner starts, and we could see the dog up on the decking diving from one bit to the other because he could hear and smell the rabbits. We just gets the turkey all onto our plates with all the trimming, and one of the rabbits makes a dive at the far end, at the bottom end of their garden. They had a log cabin, and one of the rabbits makes a dive for the decking down to the side of the log cabin. And of course Frankie, wanting to play, goes chasing after the rabbit. Now, he didn't touch the rabbit. Right. The rabbit went down the side. And Sonia says, I would really feel happier, Darren, if you just put them away. Of course, Madeline went out to get the rabbits, and this wee rabbit had got the fright of his life, literally. And of course, she comes into the house with the rabbit as we're all sitting at the dinner table. No. And she's saying, it's had a heart attack. And we got a towel out and we wrapped it in the towel. And Julie's saying, we'll do heart massage on the rabbit, and then we'll put it under the radiator and just leave it quiet. And my husband's still sitting, tucking in the turkey and helping himself to this, that and the next thing. Saul's sitting next to him, and she says to her papa, I'll put it under the radiator. Mummy says just to leave it quiet. And Saul says, let me see it. So she come up with a towel and put it in between my husband and Saul. And the pair of them looked at one another, looked back at the rabbit, and Saul says, I think it's dead, eh, Papa? You're wasting your time. So
that was the end of the rabbit?
That was, yes.
Brilliant. And he never got his dog?
Never got his dog.
Do you think he ever will?
He quite likes dogs, yes. Whether he could be bothered with them now, you know. It's other things he's chasing now.
And then later on we were away to Egypt for our silver wedding, and we came back, and my sister-in-law Val, although we knew nothing about it or never spoke about it, gave us a cat. It was a silver cat, and its name, huge name, Princess Priscilla the Third, blah blah blah, pedigree, but we just called it Kitty. So we had it for 19 years, and sadly it passed away last year.
Oh, I suppose the big thing about animals is when they come to the end of their life, and you have that horrible thing of have them put to sleep. And that happened it was a rather bizarre. We had this greyhound, so a big dog, and we went to the vet's restal rig and went through the horrible thing of having it put to sleep. And then I had to carry it out to the car because I decided I wanted to bury him in the garden. And so you have this dead dog in your arms, and I'm just putting it into the back of the car when a bus goes by, and you think, no, I don't want, don't look here. And then we took it home and laid it out on him on the bed, because we thought there's this rites of passage, and the kids, it's traumatic, but rather than the dog just disappearing, we should let them see that the dog is no longer alive. So we did that. I think they were okay. And then we waited till nightfall, and I dug this huge hole in the back garden, which is very suspicious, isn't it? And then with a blanket wrapped around the dog, put it in this hole, which I always think, again, if somebody was watching, would they think, what's going on there? And then, of course, I was fine, and then I buried it, and then I just burst into tears in the darkness and you think, and you always think, I'm never doing this again. I'm never having another dog. We've had 2 since then.
Thank you so much to Maureen, Miles, Wynne, John, Tommy, Ken and Donald for their wonderful memories of pets from the past. If you have a story to share, please pop in to see us at the Little Shop of Memory, our hands-on museum on the second floor of Ocean Terminal Leith. You can also visit our Facebook page to keep up with our regular events and view our wonderful photo videos on our YouTube channel just by searching for the Living Memory Association. We also have a brilliant website at www.livingmemory.org.uk hosting over 3,000 photos of the past in association with Edinburgh Collected. And through the webpage you can also access Thelma FM, our brand new radio station playing records and reminiscence 24 hours a day. Until next time, we bid you farewell.